Om Badram Karnebihi Shrunyamadevaha Badram Pashyema Akshabihi Ryajatraha Sthirairangayir Tushtuvam Sastanobihi Vyashema Devahitan Yadayuhu Swastina Indro Vridrashravaha Swastina Pusha Vishwavedaha Swastina Tarksho Arishtanemihi Swastino Bruhaspatir Dadatu Om Shanti 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 Yo Antah Pravishya Mama Vacha Imam Prashuptam Sanjeevayati Akila Shaktidhara Swadamnam Anyam Shtahasta Charana Shravanatvagadin Pranan Namo Bhagavate Purushaya Tubhyam Lasatu Srimadananda Tirtendurno Hrudambare Yadvachaschandrika Swanta Santapam Vinikrintati पदवाक्य प्रमाण ज्ञान प्रणम्य शिरसा गुरून् व्याकरिष्ये यथा बोधं विष्णु तत्व विनिर्णयम्. So, good evening, good afternoon, and good morning for friends who have joined for the 27th session of Mundaka Upanishad. Actually, we are almost getting halfway through completing the Mundaka Upanishad, and we have another half to go over the next 8 to 10 months. So, where were we last time? So the rishis, let's always think about Atharva, Angira, Satyavaha, Angirasa, and Shuanaka, and all the acharyas who have given us the bhashyas. The devata, of course, is Aksharanamaka Paramatma, and the chandas is Anushtup Chandas. So we are in the Dvitiya Mundake, Pratamaha Kandaha, and we are in the 8th verse. Let's start with the 7th verse. Tasma Devaha Bahuda Samprasutaha Sadhyaha Manushyaha Pashavo Vayamsi Prana Apano Vrihi Yavo Tapascha Shraddha Satyam Brahmacharyam Vidishcha Sapta Pranaha Prabhavanti Tasmat Sapta Archishaha Samidaha Sapta Homaha Sapta ime lokaha yeshu charanti pranaha guhashaya nihitaha sapta sapta. So this is this beautiful verse that we have, the 8th verse that we are doing at this point. So what is Angirasa telling us here? The greatness and the glory of this particular khanda of the second Mundaka is it talks about creation. It talks about every aspect of the creation that Paramatma has done. God, the creator of the universe, the Janmadhyasya Yataha. And we know he is the creator of eightfold dispensations of the world of Jada and Chetana. So what are all those creations that he has done? So what Angira has done, what Angirasa has done actually is over 10 verses. He has actually summarized all the great things that Paramatma has created in the universe for our benefit. So when Angirasa is teaching Shuanaka, essentially how does that knowledge descend from? It comes from Chaturmukha teaching to Atharva, and Atharva to Angirasa, Angira to Chaturmukha to Atharva, Atharva to Angira, Angira to Satyavaha, Satyavaha to Angirasa, Angirasa to Shuanaka, and all the rishis and the acharyas, and through them we have received them. So that is what the discussion here is. Angirasa is teaching Shuanaka exactly what Chaturmukha Brahma taught to Atharva. That is the discussion here about the various dimensions and aspects of creation in the universe that Paramatma has done for us, which is very, very important. So last week we had a brief glimpse of what is Sapta Pranaha, and the last line, Guhashaya Nihitaha. So let's think about this a little bit more before we move to the next line. Okay, so Sapta Pranaha. So Sapta means 7, Pranaha means pranas. This prana should not be confused with Pancha Pranaha. Pancha Prana is the Apana, Prana, Vyana, Udana, Samana. And in the previous verse, he said Prana Apanav. So by that, we also understand the other 3 pranas. That is the 5 pranas that are the 5 forms of the Vayu Tattva, which is involved in the metabolism, catabolism, and so on of the body. So that Pancha Pranaha should not be confused with the Sapta Pranaha that is being discussed here. So the Sapta Pranaha here is the Indriyas. Okay, so that's the first point here. So our Guru, Veda Vyasa. So for those of us who are interested in Vedanta Sutra and Brahma Sutra, and the purpose of the Vedanta Sutra and the Brahma Sutra is what? for us to understand how to read the Upanishads, how to understand the language of the Upanishads. So that is the primary purpose of the Brahma Sutra, right? So here, there is a discussion about Sapta Pranaha that Angirasa is teaching in Mundaka Upanishad. Whereas there is another Vedic statement in Kaundinya Shruti which talks about Dvadasha va eta pranaha. So there is a philosophy of 12s that comes in Kaundinya Shruti. Dvadasha va eta pranaha. Dvadasha means 12. So in Kaundinya Shruti, which is another Veda itself, which says 12 pranas. So there appears to be an internal contradiction for those purists who are interested in the language of the Vedas. What is it? Is it 7 pranas or the 12 pranas? Okay. So to address that, Veda Vyasa has done an adhikaranam called Saptagatya Adhikaranam. Yeah. Saptagatir Visheshitatvacha Hastadayastu Stiter Ato Naivam. Okay, so go and check this particular adhikaranam out, which essentially deals with the verse that we are dealing with this week. Okay, so there the resolution of what that Sapta Prana is and Dvadasha Prana is, they both talk about the same things. They talk about the Indriyas, okay? They talk about the Indriyas, but from different perspectives. That is how you resolve this, because Veda is Samanvaya, isn't it? There is Samanvaya throughout the Vedas. Vedas talk the same thing. If we think there are internal contradiction, it is our problem. It is our ignorance. Yeah? But Vedas say the same thing from different perspectives. So that is what Veda Vyasa here clarifies. And he says when the sutra says Sapta Gathir, that talks about the Jnana Indriyas. Jnana Indriya Apekshaya Saptatvam. Yeah, and last week we looked at all these Jnana Indriyas. Whereas if you look at the next sutra, it is Hastadayastu. Hasta means hands. Hands and others, they are Karma Indriyas. How many are there? There are 5 Karma Indriyas and there are 7 Jnana Indriyas. Okay. So who is going to list us the 5 Karma Indriyas? Who is going to tell us about the 5 Karma Indriyas? Quick question. So, okay, let's go with who it is. Is it Pratibhaji?
Yeah.
Go for it. We can't hear you properly.
Pani, Pado, Payu and Upasta.
Okay, thank you very much. Anandji, do you want to complete that?
It's Vak, Pani, Padam, Payu, Upasta.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, everyone. So that is the 5 Karma Indriyas. Jnana Indriyas is what? You have the eyes, the ears, the tongue, the nose, and the touch. And then you have the mind, which processes all the sensory input, and the intellect does for higher processing. Okay. So the 7 are the Jnana Indriyas. 5 are the Karma Indriyas. So from the Vedas perspective, when Mundaka says in Atharva Veda, Sapta Pranaha, it is talking about the Jnana Indriyas. And when Kaundinya Shruti says Dvadashava Eta Pranaha, it adds +5, which is the Karma Indriyas, that is 12. 7 plus 5 equals 12. So the Samanvaya is perfect. There is no internal conflict. It is about the way in which we look at it. So why is it important here? And why is Angirasa talking about 7 pranahas? 7 pranahas is important because they are the Jnana Indriyas. Jnana does what? Gati. Gati means to go. To go means what? To know. To know means what? Elevation, knowledge. So Jnana Indriyas elevate us. So that is why he is giving importance to Jnana Indriya. Here, Sapta Pranaha, whereas in the Hasta, the Karma Indriyas have a role, right? Of course, if you want to learn something or if you want to come to the satsang, we have to use the Karma Indriyas. We have to get up from whatever it is that we were doing and then come and sit and do stuff in front of this computer for the satsang. So that is all Karma Indriyas. So Karma Indriyas is essential, but it also depends on the perspective in which you are doing karmas. If it is Jnanottara karma, it is Nishkama karma, then that is elevating. But if it is Sakamya karma for your own pleasures, then that is stagnating. So that is why Hastadayastu Sthite. So karmas done for selfish benefits is stagnating. We go round and round in circles. Whereas Jnana Indriya is elevating. So here Angirasa is reminding Shuanaka, look Shuanaka, you got this sadhana sharira for your elevation, for you to progress and and cut this, samsara, you need to gain knowledge. Yeah, even the instruments for knowledge is given by Paramatma. He is so graceful that he has given you the instruments of knowledge. We don't, of course, think about it. We don't think about where did the eyes come from, nose and tongue and everything else. Where did this come from? We don't think about it. We just use it. Where did the mind come from? We don't even think about this and we just use it. Where did the intellect come from? We don't even think about it, but we use our intellect. Angirasa is reminding, look, all the instruments that you are using, if you think about it deeply, you have not created any damn thing. It's created by Paramatma, is what the reminder here is. So, Jnana Indriya and Karma Indriya. So, last week we also had a quick recap of who is the knower, who receives the knowledge, who is the knower. And within the Vedantic system, the three schools, there are some diverse views, and we don't have time to go into the nuances of all that, but I just want to remind you here. So if you think about Tattvavada and Visishtadvaita, Jiva is the knower. Jiva is the one that receives the knowledge. Whereas if you go to Mayavada, it is the mind stuff or the Antakarana, which is the knower. Yeah, it is the mind that knows, receives and knows and says, I know now. Okay? The underlying sentient principle is actually Nirguna, Nirakara, Nirkriya entity which does nothing. That is the view of the Mayavada philosophers that I think will be useful for us to think about and compare and contrast. So Jiva is the knower in Tattvavada and Visishtadvaita. Now, if you look at the Karma Indriyas, who is the doer? Okay, is just the hand that does the action, or is it just the leg that does the action? No, we have done enough discussion on Karma Yoga, both in chapter 2 and chapter 3 in our Gita Chintana, to understand about the concept of Jiva Kartrutva. Okay, so if you look at Tattvavada and to some extent the Visishtadvaita, Jiva is the doer. Okay, whereas if you look at the Mayavada philosophy, it is the mind stuff or the antakarana which initiates the volition to do various actions. So those are some of the different views. So I leave it to you to try and think about this. The reason why I say this is our founding father Veda Vyasa has done a sutra which I believe is a very important sutra. Rachana anupapatteshta na anumanam pravrutteshta om. Okay, Rachana na anupapatteshta na anumanam. So that's a very, very important sutra. Okay, that defeats the materialist and other schools of philosophy which does not think about sentience. Here, what Veda Vyasa is telling us is the ability for self-initiated action as well as the ability to receive knowledge, for example, but primarily the ability for self-initiated action is only in a sentient being. Yeah, a stone does not have an ability for self-initiated action. Mind is as similar as stone. Mind is a jada. It is an evolute of matter, which is jada. Okay, whereas the sentiency is the motivation for self-initiated action is according to Veda Vyasa. So if you put that sutra, then the answer becomes slightly different for certain schools of philosophy. But anyway, at this point, it's useful for us to understand who is the knower, who is the doer. How do we obtain knowledge? So this is a new slide for today, which I hope you will find it very interesting, bringing all the aspects of Katha Upanishad and other Upanishads in this equation. So how is knowledge obtained? Okay, so we have the sadhana sharira and we have all these indriyas. And what is happening? We are receiving knowledge. We are receiving knowledge through sense organs and sense object contact, right? That is how we receive knowledge. There is no other mechanism by which we can receive knowledge with our sense organs always facing externally. So again, when you look at Katha Upanishad, which we have done so many times, we have the 5 horses, which are the 5 sense organs. Then there is the rein, which is the mind. And then there is the charioteer, which is the intellect. And then there is the rider, who is the soul. Now this chariot, this whole thing is the body. And the horses are going towards the sense objects. Okay. And the intellect and the mind somehow are supposed to control this. Particularly the mind is supposed to control the sense organs and the intellect controls the mind. And ultimately it is the soul that controls the intellect under the purview of Paramatma, who is there inside him as his Antaryami. So that is the whole sequence of events that is happening here, isn't it? So we just need to think about it a little bit more from a philosophical perspective. So we got all these 7 instruments, 7 sense organs are there, and the primary 5 have to get in contact with the external objects. So we know what are the 5 sense organs: Chakshu, Shrotra, Tvak, Rasana, and Grahana. Yeah. So not in any particular order, but the order should actually be who is going to give us in order. I've just recited it in not in a particular order, but who is going to tell us the Indriyas in their particular order? Anybody wants to come in there? Which comes first? Shrotra comes first.
Then Chakshu.
Yeah, go for it.
Shrotram Chakshus.
Varshanam, Rasanam, Granam,
Yeah.
15th chapter.
Yeah.
Arsanam, Rasanam, Granam Evacha. Wonderful. So I've kind of jumbled it up exactly for our discussion. So thank you very much, Neetaji and Sushrut. Wonderful answer. So that should be the order, because the Tanmatras and the Panchabhutas are in that order. And it is this body is only perceiving those Pancha Tanmatras and the Panchabhutas. Yeah. So you need to think about this a bit more. So here is an important idea that I want to sort of reintroduce. We've done this before. So we have understood that, say, for example, it is Shrotra. Shrotra receives the Shabda. Tvak receives Sparsha. Rasana receives the taste, the watery substances that have various taste. Then the smell is Grahana, which is the Gandha. Okay. So that we know. Now, how is that knowledge produced? This is called perceptual knowledge, isn't it? So we have organs of perception and we get perceptual knowledge. So we know from our various discussions, there are only 3 means for knowledge. So what are the 3 means of knowledge? Who wants to tell us that? What are the 3 means of knowledge?
Pratyaksha, Anumana, and Agama.
Beautiful. Thank you, Neetaji. So, Pratyaksha, Anumana, Agama. These are the 3 means of knowledge that is available at our disposal. So, Pratyaksha is perceptual knowledge that comes from the contact of these sense organs with their sense objects. Okay. Srimad Acharya gives a definition of what is Pratyaksham. Nirdosha, Artha, Indriya, Sannikarsham, Pratyaksham. That is the definition of Pratyaksha. Pratyaksha means Nirdosha, Artha, Indriya, Sannikarsha. Sannikarsha means contact. Nirdosha means defectless. Artha means sense object. Indriya means sense organs. So the defectless contact between sense objects and sense organs creates a knowledge in us. That knowledge is called perceptual knowledge. Okay? So this is a very important point of epistemology in philosophy. Yeah. Defectless contact between defectless indriyas and sense objects under optimal condition generates true knowledge. That is the view of, say, for example, Tattvavada, about reality and knowledge. Okay? And here it may be useful for us to remind ourselves, what do our Mayavada philosopher friends say? What is their view of Pratyaksha? What is the perceptual knowledge from the Mayavada school? It's very interesting if you look at this. The Mayavada definition is Vimatam Mithya Drishyatvat. Okay? Drishyatva means perception. This external world is Mithya because it is an objecthood of perception. Okay, so we got a question, Anandji.
I was curious, Ray, you told optimal condition. Why isn't it in all conditions? Just can you differentiate that, please, if you don't mind?
Yeah, sure. Definitely, Anandji, we'll come to that. So what do our Mayavada philosophers say? The Mayavada philosopher says, Vimatam Mithya Drishyatvat. Anything that is perceived is actually Mithya. Okay. So how do they kind of reconcile it? That actually brings very nicely into what Anandji had just now asked. So what is the view there? So for example, it is evening. The sun is just about setting down. I am walking in the fields. It is a little bit dark. Okay. So I got a little bit of cataract. My eyes are not working properly. The condition outside is a little dark. There is no sufficient light. So I am walking on the field. There is a rope that is on the field. So my defective sense organs, that is the eyes which has got cataract, is seeing that rope. but the external condition is not optimal. The lighting is not sufficient. And that rope somehow, because I have a defective sense organ and there is no optimal external condition, that signal that comes from the rope, it comes to my eyes and somehow I perceive that that is a snake. Okay. So that is the situation there as to how a rope is perceived as a snake. And there are set conditions there. What is the condition? The contact between the sense organ and the sense object is not correct because the sense organ is defective there. And also the external condition is also not great. Or you may even have a situation where your eyes are perfectly fine, but still because the optimal conditions are not right, the signals that comes from the rope does reach your retina, but you're not able to get all this information out of it so that you're able to perceive a rope. So that is very important. We can discuss the epistemology of this particular equation in great detail. But what the Mayavada philosophers have said is, look, when you perceive the snake, when you perceive the rope as a snake, but actually the snake is not there. It is only the rope. Similarly, there is only Brahman, and on Brahman is superimposed the universe. So anything that you perceive is not real. Okay, so think about this problem. I think we have dealt with this quite a lot previously, but I'm just trying to introduce this very briefly to say, what is Angirasa's view? Angirasa is spending this whole verse talking about Sapta Pranaha, all these sense organs and the sense objects. Why is he talking about that unless the contact between that is real? Why is this whole chapter talking about creation and all the aspects of creation if the creation is not real? If the creation is mithya, if the contact between the sense organs and the sense object does not matter, what is the point? So think about all these kind of ideas, because this is what the Vedantic philosophers talk about. So just because the conditions were not right and your contact between the sense organs were not right, there is the specific condition where you can get an illusion. Okay? There has to be some criteria to get an illusion. But to put a blind stroke and say that anything that you perceive is an illusion is a little bit problematic. So it has to be qualified, is what the view of the realistic schools of philosophy, because then the philosophy of realism and so on progresses afterwards. Yeah. So I hope you find that idea useful, because given any opportunity, what our Vedas say, what our Upanishads say, we should always think about the philosophy, the epistemology there. So Sapta Pranaha, defectless contact between defectless indriyas and sense objects under optimal conditions generates true knowledge. Okay, that is what is the definition. In the normal scheme of things, in our transaction of life, in the normal transaction of life, whatever contact that we have between sense objects and sense organs is true knowledge. There are only exceptions where you can get an illusion, but illusion is not the rule. So that is the argument from other schools. Anyway, that is for another day, but I thought you will find this interesting to bring it here. And what is Angirasa's view? Okay, this is beautiful. Sapta pranaha prabhavanti tasmat. That is what Angirasa is saying. These pranas, these sense organs of knowledge, prabhavanti tasmat, they are created by Paramatma. It is not a superimposition on Brahman, or it is not an illusion. Our Angirasa is very clear. He says, prabhavanti tasmat. Okay? So let us dwell on this idea, because this verse opens up a whole lot of other philosophical discussion. So as we said, contact between sense organs and sense objects produces knowledge in us. Okay? And that is what Angirasa is telling us, that knowledge, he says that knowledge is archi. Archi means what? Flame or fire. And the concept of fire in Vedic philosophy has got various connotations, right? Light can be pure, fire can be equated with light, fire can be equated with purity and all that. Pure and light. Think about that. Pure and light. Light is knowledge. And pure knowledge, true knowledge. Okay, so Archi in that sense talks about true knowledge that happens when a sense organ comes in contact with the sense object. So Sapta Archishaha. So again, the beauty of this verse is, because Shuanaka is such a great Yajnashala, And in the first few verses in this chapter, he has talked about how you can look at a Yajna Kunda and think about how Brahman has created the universe. So now the same Angirasa's genius is that he says, look at the same Kunda, mate, and I'll tell you about your Pindanda. Brahmanda is where the universe has been created, was discussed in the first few verses. Now the same Pindanda is also a microcosm of what is happening in Brahmanda, right? So Angirasa said, look at your Pindanda. Your Pindanda itself is like a fire sacrifice. How is that possible? So the Kunda is the sense organs. The Samit, wood, is the sense objects. The fire that comes out is the knowledge. So when the sense object is there in the Kunda, that produces the flame that causes the knowledge. There is also another view where the Ahuti that is given into the Kunda called the sense organs, the Ahuti is the sense object, and then the Kunda is the sense organ. So the Ahuti is given into the sense objects, sense organs that produces the fire, the pure knowledge. That is called Archihi. Okay, so I hope you were able to grasp that. So think about it, ruminate on this idea, because that is what Angirasa is saying. I mean, when you look at it superficially, he says, what is all this Sapta Archihi, Sapta Samidaha, Sapta Homaha, and all that in this context? What is it that is going on? So what is going on here is Sapta Archihi means 7 pure knowledge. 7 pure knowledge, how does that happen? Sapta Homaha. Sapta Homaha. Homa is the contact between the sense object and the sense organ, or the wood and the Kunda, or the Ahuti and the Kunda. Yeah. So that is the Homa that is going on. Homa or the Havan that is going on in our Indriyas, in our Jnana Indriyas. Pratibhaji. You need to unmute, yeah.
Then the true knowledge could be got only by the Guru and the Shishya. We also have different sense organs. So how do we get this pure knowledge? Unless it has to come only from the Guru Shishya, is it? Or the scriptures. What we feel and touch right now might be defectless and defectful.
Yeah, so thank you, Pratibhaji. I think I've got your question. So there are two knowledges, right? There is the external knowledge and there is the internal knowledge. So currently what we are talking about is the external knowledge that we are dealing with the 7 indriyas and the external sense objects. Yeah. So the internal knowledge that you get is your external contact is required. Say, for example, you do need to use your eyes and hearing and everything when you hear the Guru, right? When you're sitting in front of the Guru, you have a book, you have to open a book, you have to read the book, you have to hear what the Guru is saying. So there also that contact between sense organs is going on, and that has to be perfect. So that is what is called patakaran. What is the word? I'm not getting there. So the Karana Patutva, as it's called, so the sense organs being right, you have to be very focused and concentrated when you sit next to the Guru, and the Guru has to have sufficient, proficiency of his sense organs that he is able to recite and say things properly and so on. All those discussions come in. So I hope that answers your question. So we are talking about external knowledge here, and how that knowledge contact is important, and how that objects are being created by Paramatma, and how that knowledge that we get is like a homa here. It is like a fire sacrifice. It is like a yajna. Yeah. And Angirasa is giving us a metaphor here. As actually, when you look at this kunda itself, when you look at this yajna itself, you can think about what is happening in your pindanda. So stay with me on this. The slide is a little complicated, but I'll go through it. So just to summarize, Shrotra, you have Shabda. The contact between the Shrotra and the Sabda is the homa. And when that contact happens, you get the knowledge, which is the fire, which is the archihi. Okay. So he has said Sapta Pranaha. So the Sapta Pranaha generates Sapta Archishaha. So the 7 knowledge that you get: Tvak, Sparsha, Chakshus, Rupa, Rasana, Rasa, Grahana, Gandha, mind, Sankalpa, intellect, Nirnaya. So these contacts generate those knowledge that Angirasa says, this is Sapta Archishaha, Sapta Samidaha, Sapta Homaha. So these are the 7 fire sacrifices that he is talking about. So Now we need to bring this in this equation because we are talking about Vedas, right? And we are talking about Upanishads, and Veda Vyasa has always given us an equation. Whenever what apparently appears to be a Jada Tattva is being discussed, you should always think about a Chetana behind this. Abhimani Vyapadeshastu Visheshanugatibhyam. So take Shrotra, Shabda, Tvak, Sparsha, Chakshus, Rupa, Rasana, Rasa, Grahana, Gandha, mind, Sankalpa, intellect, Buddhi, Manas Sankalpa, Buddhi Nirnayam. Now go to the Pindanda. Look at all our Abhimani Devatas. Then go to our Pindanda. Look at all our Abhimani Devatas. So here, what Angirasa is saying, the creation of not just the Jada Tattvas, but also all the Abhimani Devatas of all this. Things that have not been covered in the previous verses, we need to bring it here and understand. So look at, let's go to hearing first. Shabda. Chandra we have done. Soma, Mitra, Yama, they all come into this being. So not only the physical objects are created, but also the Abhimani Devatas. Look at touch. Kubera, Pradhana Vayu. Eyes, we are all very familiar. Surya. Look at mind. Garuda, Sesha, Rudra, Indra, Kama, Brihaspati, Chandra, Parvati, Brahma, Lakshmi. So all those Devatas are there. We have done Indra, Rudra at some point. We have to here bring in Garuda, Sesha, Indra, Kama, Brihaspati, Chandra. If you think of Purusha Shukta, Chandrama, Manaso, Jata. So you have to bring that in the equation. Buddhi. Why do we pray to Goddess Saraswati? Because she is Abhimani of Buddhi, along with Bharati and Parvati. Okay. Smell, Ashwini twins. So the creations of all these also get covered, as well as the Jada Tattvas also get covered. So when you look at Purusha, Yagnena Yajnam Ayajanta Devaha, that verse is very, very significant because it not only talks about the creation of Brahmanda, where all these Tattvabhimani Devatas are doing their respective duties, but also the same Tattvabhimani Devatas are also doing their respective duties in the Pindanda. Okay. Say, for example, when I am seeing something, yes, there is an object there, there is a Rupa there, the light from the Rupa is hitting my retina, and from there it is going inside, so that contact is there. But how did that contact come into being? So there, for your Indriya, the sun, your eyes to work properly, Surya should be there to ensure that your Indriyas are working properly. So the contemplation there is, in your Pindanda, your Tattvabhimani Devatas are also doing great sacrifice as a service to the Supreme Lord, that they ensure that the rays from the sun go into the retina and they create this knowledge. That is their yajna. So that is how the rishis think about these problems. Everywhere there is sentiency. So they are doing their yajnas, we are doing their yajnas, and ultimately our Brahman is doing all these yajnas, and that is the cosmic creation that we are talking about. So there are so many layers that we have to appreciate when Angirasa talks about this kind of creation in here. Not only that, Sapta ime lokaha yeshu charanti pranaha. That is very interesting. Look at all our Jnana Indriyas, okay? All our Jnana Indriyas primarily are on the head. They are all stationed in our head. Primarily, all our Jnana Indriyas are stationed in our head. There is an entirely different philosophy to discuss as to why is it that they are stationed in our head? Why can't there be in our foot? Why can't we have eyes in our foot? So there is also a philosophy that is discussed in other Upanishads. That is for another day. But here what Angirasa is saying, have you thought about this problem? Why is your eyes in your head? Why is your hearing placed on your head? That stationing of Indriyas in their respective places has also been designed by the Supreme, he says. This could be, our Darwinian evolution may say this is most efficient, blah, blah, blah. They will say that is how evolutionarily they've all come in and they've been placed in the head of this human being. No, our Rishi says, why is it that Darwinian evolution happened that way? They're asking the why question, not what. Yeah, why? When you look at that, even that placing of these Indriyas in our head is also been designed by Supreme. Okay? And at the same time, the lokaha there can also mean all these abhimani devatas of so many other entities that we've said, where all they are placed in the universe, their respective lokas are also designed by Paramatma. He has designed everything. He is designed and he has created everything. And what do these pranas do, these indriyas? Once they are positioned here, yeshu charanti pranaha, they then go towards their respective sense objects that is discussed in the Katha Upanishad as this chariot, right? Why do they do that? Guha ashaya nihitaha. That we did last week. They are doing this job because there is this fellow who is sitting in the Guha ashaya nihitaha. There is a fellow who is sitting in the middle portion of your body in that guha. And that fellow receives the knowledge for his progress. So for the soul's benefit, which receives the knowledge or the buddhi, yeah, the knowledge. And how does it receive this? Through all these sense organs that it receives the knowledge. Okay. For its benefit, our Paramatma has created this Pindanda with the 7 organs of knowledge so that we can use it and put it to good practice. Rather than going to a cinema, we can go to a temple. Rather than reading a novel, we can pick up Gita. So those are all the things that we can do. It is our choice what we want to do, but those are the things that we can do for our progress. Prakashji.
Just is a very flashed on my mind. The Tvagindriya, which is also a part of Jnana Indriya, is all over the body. So there is no real placement for that Indriya. So only these 4 Indriyas are concentrated in the head portion. But Tvagindriya is there all over the body. Just wanted to, as an idea, I wanted to put forth that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prakashji. That's an interesting thought. So, but the answer to that would be, again, we should never forget the fact that what is there externally is only a magnifying glass. The real indriyas are actually in the sukshma sharira. The real indriya of Tvak is in the Sukshma Sharira. The real indriya of the eyes is in the Sukshma Sharira. Where the Jiva is placed, that is what Guhashaya Nihitaha. So think about that. But you're absolutely right. The Tvak is the largest sense organ in the body. And that is placed everywhere. But then the primary other 4. So here is the answer to that. Even if you think about that, even among these 4 that are there, let us take hearing, eyes, and the nose, and the tongue. The 4 of these guys are there on the head, right? Even there, the contemplation is you probably need the most important ones would be the eyes and the eye and the hearing, because that is how you gain knowledge, right? You read and you hear. So, and then you speak. So that is also there. So those 3 guys are there here, eyes, hearing, and speak. That is also there. So you're right in that sense. Maybe the other 2 is not required. Okay.
And also, Madhu, you said about last week about the Sukshma Sarira, where the blind people with near-death experience can see things which they would not have seen with their like normal eyes otherwise. So the Sukshma Sarira is very important rather than, I mean, it's well, physical thing is important, but Sukshma Sarira is very important on top of it.
Beautiful, Sudarshan. Thank you very much. So, Sapta Pranaha Prabhavanti Tasmad, Sapta Archishaha Samidaha, Sapta Homaha, Sapta Ime Lokaha, Yeshu Charanti Pranaha, Guhashaya Nihitaha, Sapta Sapta. So he finishes this word saying Sapta Sapta. Think about this. In each one of us sitting in this satsang, we have this Sapta Pranaha operating all the time. Everybody, when he says Sapta Sapta, it means it's everywhere. So many, all living beings have these Sapta Pranaha, various types. And of course, we evolve. Man is the most evolved species on earth where this is being described. But there are other species where some of the pranas are much more sensitive and evolved than us. If you look at the snake, for example, its olfactory function is much higher. If you look at this, the dogs, their hearing is much higher. And then I think the eagle, for example, has the most focused vision. So they all have that special things. But for humans, these 5 external sense organs may be there, but for us, 2 other things are highly evolved. So who wants to answer that? What are the 2 other things that is most highly evolved for humans compared to a dog or a rat or a snake?
Manas and Buddhi.
Beautiful, Sushrut. So mind and intellect is highly developed for us. Our indriyas are still there, but may not be as good as others. So that is why if you put the Sapta Pranaha, it becomes very beautiful for those of us who have the Sadhana Sharira. So then this is another new verse for us. We are making good progress today. So Pratibhaji, your hands are raised. Is it historical or do you want to come in again?
Sorry, my mistake. Yeah.
No worries. Thank you very much. So Next verse. So after talking about the creation of all the indriyas, the philosophy of seven is still not finished. It keeps going. The next verse, Angirasa says, Ataha samudrad girayashcha. Yeah, so hang on, let me get this right. Ataha samudra girayashcha sarve asmad syandante sindavaha sarvarupaha atashta sarva voshadayo rasashta yena esha bhutaish tishtate hi antaratma. So very, very clear verses from Angirasa. So when you go outside, when you weekend, when the weather is right, you go out, right? Ata samudraha girayashta sarvaha asmat syandante sindavaha sarvarupaha. So seven samudras, 7 oceans in the world. So we talk about 7 oceans, right? Arctic, North Atlantic, South Atlantic, Indian Ocean, North Pacific, South Pacific, the Southern or the Antarctic Ocean. These are considered the 7 primary oceans on Earth. Ata samudraha. Okay, so this is interesting. So for those of us who have insight into yoga shastras would find it good. So Pragnesh is in the call. So so this is good. 7 oceans in Vedic philosophy. So yes, you're looking at 7 oceans outside in Brahmanda. That is 7 oceans. That was also created by Paramatma. But 7 oceans of Vedic philosophy corresponding to 7 chakras in our Pindanda was also created by Paramatma, says Angirasa. So I've listed those 7 oceans of Vedic philosophy, and if some of you want to contribute to that now, that will be great, and then we can discuss this. So I've listed the Brahmanda oceans. So in our Pindanda, in our corresponding to our chakras, they are the samudras there. Salt ocean, sugar ocean, the ocean of alcohol, the ocean of butter, the ocean of curd, the ocean of milk, and the ocean of Amruta. 7 oceans. Pragneshji, go for it. So tell us about the 7 chakras and the 7 oceans.
Thank you very much. So from below upwards, Muladhara, Swadhisthana, Manipura, Anahata, Vishuddha, Ajna, and Sahasra.
So the 7 chakras. So go on, Pragnesh. Yeah, sorry.
Did you hear that or not? Because
I did. I was able to hear. So do you want to correspond that to the various 7 oceans of Vedic philosophy?
So as you have written here, from below upwards, Muladhara is at the sacral, then Swadhisthana is in lumbar plexus, Manipura is near the Nabi, Anahata is at the heart, Vishuddha is at the throat, Ajna is at the forehead, and Sahasra is at the top, Brahmarandra, which is at the top of the vertex, the purple one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pragnesh. So these are called samudras. The chakras are also called samudras. Okay, this is really interesting from an anatomy perspective for those of us who are of medical predisposition here. So the salt ocean is the lowest chakra, area of the lowest chakra, because that is where the urinary bladder and the kidney is, where the urine is excreted, which is salt. Okay. The next one, Pragneshji, what is the next one just above the Muladhara? So no problem. So then you have the islets of Langerhans.
Swadhisthana.
Yeah. So the islets of Langerhans, so the pancreas, the islets, that is the ocean of the sugar that processes the sugar. Then you have the adrenal glands, okay? And our rishis equate the adrenal glands to alcohol, because that is where all the steroids are made. Steroids are alcohol, okay? Various steroids are synthesized in the adrenal gland and various other hormones are secreted. So that is corresponding to the alcohol area. Okay? Then you have the middle, this area where the thymus is corresponding to the butter. Okay, that is very, very interesting. We'll come. How is that corresponding to the butter? We'll come to it in a minute. Then the thyroid gland area is corresponding to the ocean of curd. The eyes is corresponding to the ocean of milk. And then you have the Amruta. So Manjunathji.
Madhu,
Kilaji, go for it.
Swadhisthana, you said sugar. I mean, what does it, I mean, how can it be?
So yeah, so what I was saying there is the area that corresponds to that is where the islets of Langerhans are, the pancreas area. Yeah, the pancreatic.
Oh, is it?
The
Okay, does it
islets.
start from there? I thought pancreas is near diaphragm somewhere. I'm not. I'm not a doctor, so.
So, okay, so you can go into the anatomy in detail, but let me give you how the Vedic rishis approach these oceans. Okay.
Okay.
So the salt is where the urinary bladder is, salty urine is excreted. The sugar where the area where the sugar ocean. So this is discussed in the Vedic philosophy, the various oceans that exist out there. Okay. So the sugar ocean processes the sugar, which can be equated to the islets, alcohol to the adrenal gland, butter to the area of the thymus, curd to the area of the thyroid, milk to the area of the eyes, and amruta is the sahasrara, the immortality, the nectar. Those are the 7 oceans that are described in the Vedic philosophy. Now I want to go from milk down to butter, and I want to go from alcohol to butter. Okay, so this is very interesting. Our gurus teach us this. So milk, curd, and butter. Why on earth that Krishna likes butter? Okay, why? Think about that problem. Why does Krishna like butter? Does he like butter because he wants his cholesterol to be very high? So, sorry, Sharadji, go for it.
Am I audible?
Yeah, yes.
So, Madhusudanji, it's a very, very wonderful analogy. I never saw it from that perspective. Because my idea of chakras were that basically they are energy centers, phenotypically represented in the spine, but obviously somewhere in the brain only. And as one evolves in the level of the consciousness, obviously, most of us are in Mooladhara. But when we start evolving in our consciousness, our perception changes. And then you finally reach to Sahasrara. So even the religions are said to be, represented by some, for instance, each religion is kind of like the Hinduism, they say that it could be the region of Sahasrara. The Christianity could be the Agneya, and then the Islamic could be in the region of the throat, which is the Vishuddhi Chakra. So that was my idea.
Yeah.
I may be wrong. So how do you kind of correlate the organs to this?
Yeah.
Because basically we thought that it's in the brain center. And that analogy of Krishna is also very interesting. I thought he used to eat a lot of butter because fundamentally he was on a ketogenic diet. So that really...
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Saraji, for those interesting comments. So the 7 chakras can be viewed in so many different angles. So you were talking about the plexus in the spinal cord, then the 7 levels of consciousness and so on. So you're absolutely right. Thanks for sharing those insights. So this is just another view. So the ductless glands, as it's called, the chakras corresponding to the 7 ductless glands. And the 7 ductless glands in maybe Sudarshan knows this better from Ayurveda, or Pragneshji knows this better. So these ductless glands are also called samudras in one view. So is that right, Pragnesh and Sudarshan? That's my understanding. The ductless glands, samudras, because they shed their thingy directly into the bloodstream. Yeah. So coming back to that, so butter, why does Krishna like butter? Not because he wants to raise his cholesterol or on a ketogenic diet, as Saraji mentioned. Think about this butter, the devotion. Okay, so milk becomes curd, and when the curd is churned, it becomes butter. Butter is a significant, in Vedic philosophy, butter signifies devotion. Yeah, your devotion to the Supreme. Yeah, that is what Krishna likes. Okay, that butter is what Krishna likes. And where is that ocean of butter? It is there in the thymus. Why on earth is it in the thymus? The relationship is beautiful here. It is in the thymus because Guha Shaya Nihitaha. That is where the Jiva is along with the Paramatma. And that is where in the Sushupti state, he is embracing and he is there at that point there in close proximity of the Paramatma. So that butter there, it can open up various ideas, particularly devotion. Yeah. And then Amrita is your emancipation and your eternal bliss. Alcohol is interesting. Lust, that signifies lust. When lust is transformed into devotion, that becomes butter. Teach our gurus. Yeah. Your lust should be translated. Lust for things should be translated into desire for Paramatma. So that then is the devotion. And then eventually that takes you to Amrita. So I hope, yeah, Prakashji.
Oh, yeah, again, here also, we are equating everything to these chemicals. Because basically all these things are only what you're talking about. I'm not a doctor, sorry. From whatever I know, these are just chemicals. So For example, if you want to have bhakti in the anahata, which corresponds to butter, I think. I mean, suppose we induce that particular gland, and then I'm sure you're not going to get bhakti because of inducing that thing. Again, it becomes only physical, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
we are saying that it's so sukshma. So how are you going to view from that perspective? That's my point.
Yeah, so I think what I was trying to get at is first the 7 oceans of Brahmanda. That is, for us, Brahmanda is the earth, right? Those 7 oceans was created by Paramatma. And whenever we think about Brahmanda, we also think about Pindanda. So in Pindanda also 7 oceans have been described. These 7 oceans or the ductless glands or the solar plexus or the various chakras also have been created by Paramatma is what the direction of thought here is. And as a going slightly laterally, then what we are seeing is these 7 oceans, what are those? And then when you look at why should it be milk ocean, curd ocean, butter ocean, alcohol, sugar, and salt? It seems a bit silly. Can anybody have salt ocean? We can make sense. But what about an ocean of alcohol or an ocean of milk? Shira Samudra, yeah, ocean of milk. What milk? Milk from the cows? What is that milk? So when we think about these ideas, at least this is it opens up these kind of contemplation about the butter is bhakti, alcohol is lust, and that kind of stuff. So that is what the intention there, Prakashji. So moving on to the next slide. So ataha samudra girayascha sarve tasma. Sorry, let's do the ataha samudra girayascha sarve asmat syandante sindavaha. Yeah. So 7 oceans we have discussed. Girayashta, 7 mountains of India. This is what rishis are talking. What are the 7 mountains of India? Of course, there are lots of more great mountains in Bharat. But the 7 mountains were the Himalaya Parvata, the Karakoram, the Eastern Mountain Range or the Purvanchal, Vindhya and Satpura ranges, Aravalli ranges, the Western Ghats and the Eastern Ghats. These are considered as the 7 chief mountains of India. So here I have a question. Saptagiri Express. Okay, so who is going to tell us from what is the to and from of Saptagiri Express and where is it going? Look at that. Saptagiri is also there, 7 mountains. Where does Saptagiri go to?
I know it goes to Tirupati.
From where? You
Chennai.
get 50 points, 50 marks, Sushil. So it goes from Chennai and from Chennai it goes to Tirupati. And it is called Saptagiri. So anybody wants to list the 7 mountains in Tirupati, for example, Saptagiris. What are the 7 mountains? Adri as it's called. Tell me at least one.
Sheshadri.
Sheshadri, Garudadri. So you can do various Adri. So there are 7 hills also in Tirupati. I just thought it's interesting. But we are talking about the philosophy of 7, right? Samudraha, Girayashcha. Survey, all these mountains, all these oceans were all created by Paramatma. Asmat Syandante Sindavaha. 7 sacred rivers of India, they flow in various directions. Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati, Narmada, Kaveri, Godavari, Kshipra. This is one list of sacred rivers of India that I have found. Okay. They are all flowing in various directions. Sarvarupaha. And again, when you look at this great universe that has been created and the earth that has been created, that is so beautiful. You also think about Abhimani Vyapadeshastu Vishesha Nigatibhyam. When you think about the rivers, not just think about the Jada, Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati. No, they are Abhimani Devatas are there. Devata, Ganga, Devatya, Devati, Yamuna, Saraswati. They all have feminine names. There is no names with, there is no male river as far as I know. If there is some, please let me know. I'll go check it out. But many of the sacred rivers, Brahmaputra. Okay, I will check that out and see whether there is an answer to Ravi is also another one that comes to, but sacred rivers of India all have female names. Okay. So
actually, Mazusandi, there is the Nadi is female, Ikaranta, that Srilinga Shabda. Then Nadya is male. There are, I'm not able to recollect immediately, but there is one. But when I recollect, I'll let you know, please.
Thank you, Prakash. So 7 rivers, 7 mountains, 7 oceans, and also they're responding Abhimani Devatas, all created by Paramatma. Okay. So for those, anybody who has gone to the Himalayas, anybody who has taken that bus or by taxi or by car or whatever it is that you've driven through the Himalayas, where you're seeing the river, where you're seeing the mountain and the beauty, Acharya Madhva, as we know, did 2 trips to Badri. And he reminds us in the Dwadasha Stotra, Bahuchitra Jagat Bahuda Karanat Parashaktihi Ananta Gunaha Paramaha. When you look at this beautiful scenes that is in front of you when you go to Himalayas or anywhere else, you know, you are convinced at that point, this beautiful thing has to be created by somebody. It is not an illusion or something that has just happened out of the blue. This has to be created. It is so beautiful. And that is what Acharya says. When you look at these things, think about Ananta Gunaha Paramaha. Think about this great being who is an abode of infinite auspicious attributes, who has created everything. Okay? Janmadhyasya yataha. So the whole idea of why Angirasa is doing that is, it is a contemplation, right? Contemplations of 7. Why are we doing these contemplations of 7? So that we are able to understand what is it that when Veda Vyasa said, Janmadhyasya yataha, what is that creation? And Angirasa is going through all these details step by step. And I haven't finished it yet. Yeah. Saptasyasan paridayaha trishaptas samidah kritaha deva yadegyam tanvanaha abadnan purusham pashun. Purusha Shukta. Saptasyasan paridayaha. When Shuanaka is doing his yajna, he puts 7 paridis, boundaries, for his Ahavaniya and Uttaravedi, and sun in the east, and various boundaries that he puts. Even that boundary is 7. Why it is that 7? We have done that before. Look at in the yajna that Angirasa is teaching Shuanaka, there are 7 flames. Kali, Karali cha Manojava cha Sulohita ya cha Sudumra Varana. Vishwalingani, Vishwarupi cha Devi, Lelaya Mano iti Saptajihvaha. Even the flames is 7. 7 colors, 7 spectrums of light, 7 types of rays in the sun, as says the Rig Veda, Sapta Yakvihi, as it calls. And that is equal to 7 horses that Surya rides on. Those are the 7 different visible spectrum of light on which the Surya is riding, is what the Rig Veda is reminding us. So 7 everywhere. When you do your Manasa Yajna, again Saptasyasan Paridayaha, and we just now did this, isn't it? If you look at our Chandas, the Vedas, the primary Chandas that we do in the Vedas is 7. Gayatri, Ushnik, Anishtub, Bruhati, Pankti, Trishtub, Jagati. They are the Chandamsi, 7 Chandas. This corresponds to the 7 Dhatus for those who are familiar with the Ayurveda. Charma, Roma, nerve bundles, prana, marrow, flesh, bones, also created by Paramatma. They are Abhimani Devatas of the various Chandas, Swaha, Sangya, Rohini, Tara, Asitni, Ganga, Sachi, and all the Devatas, or the Abhimanis of the Chandas, they also come from Paramatma. Yeah. So when you look at 7, when Angirasa is saying 7, it actually has very, very deep contemplation. As we were discussed, 7 chakras, Sahasrara, Yajna, Vishuddha, Agnya, Vishuddha, Anahata, Manipura, Swadhisthana, Mooladhara. 7 endocrine glands, pineal, thyroid, thymus, adrenal, pancreas, ovaries, testes. Yeah. 7 vital forces, Prana, Apana, Samana, Yudana, Vyana, Devadatta, Dhananjaya. 7 sources of transaction, Akasha, Vayu, Tejas, Prithvi, Ahankara, Mahat. 7 Dhatus that we have just discussed. So there are so many 7s in Vedic philosophy. When our Angirasa says Sapta Pranaha, Upalakshana, get all the 7s. They've all been created by Paramatma. Not just that. We'll just do this and finish today. Atashta sarva oshadayaha rasashta yena esha bhutai tishtate antaratma. All the oshadis. So these bodies, now previously we read about Yavau and Uri, right? Rice and barley, for example. We did that. Here he expands it. All the food items, the oshadis, the various cereals, the bananas and all the fruits. Many fruits. Oshadi means what? Anybody wants to tell us what does Oshadi actually mean? Not the medicines, but what does Oshadi mean in Upanishad? Anand.
I think these are the plants which finish their life after giving the fruits.
Beautiful, Anandji. Fantastic. Perfect answer. So that is what is called Oshadi. All the cereals and everything that we eat created by Paramatma. Now look at that. The food that we eat, why do we eat? Because they have various tastes, right? They appear to be good to our taste. Even those the Shat Rasas, 6 tastes. Bitter, pungent, astringent, salty, sour, sweet. These are the primary 6. But of course, there are permutations and combinations of these. Our olfactory, sense organ on the tongue, the olfactory stuff in the anterior 2/3 of the tongue. There are so many of these various, sense organs that are there that can pick up various combinations of this. Who created all this? Okay. Our Angirasa says, made. This is all created by Paramatma. Yena esha bhutaihi tishtate antaratma. Okay, so I want to close the next 5 minutes, have this discussion, and we close this verse. He qualifies all these things that have been created in the universe. Yena esha bhuta tishtate hi antaratma. Again here, beautiful. This is the beauty of Angirasa and the Vedas and the Upanishad, because they give so much knowledge to us. So here he wants us to think, what is the difference between the creatorship of a potter and Brahman? A potter creates the pot. Similarly, Brahman creates the universe. What is the difference then? So we have discussed this on a few occasions. So anybody wants to share their ideas of what is the difference between the creatorship of Brahman and the creatorship of a potter? Who wants to share those ideas for us? Anand.
The Brahman creates out of his free will.
Okay, thank you, Anand. Suresh?
Yeah, Brahman creates, and unlike the potter, he pervades into his own creation. There's no loss of ownership, or there's no transactional creation which Brahman does.
Thank you, Suresh. Pragneshti?
As they say in Bhagavad Gita, Sutra Mani Gana. So it remains, as Surajji mentioned, that it transcends and like a thread in the beads, remains, pervades as a catalyst, doesn't take action in the reaction, but still makes the reaction happen. Thank you.
Good. Yeah, fantastic, beautiful, all great answers. So I agree with all that has been said. Amazing answers. So that is the difference. Potter creates a pot, but he's outside the pot. Whereas our Paramatma is so grateful. He creates and he says, I will also sit inside this and ensure that it is maintained and it fulfills its purpose, and that it is an objecthood of knowledge and everything. It actually gives its reality to it also. He pervades it and gives its reality. Satta, Pramiti and Pravriti, as discussed in the Shastras. So, yena esha bhuta tishtate. Bhutaihi tishtate. Bhutas, there we know there are several bhutas. One bhuta is the Panchabhutas. The other bhutas are you and me, the Jiva Ganas. Yeah. So in the Jada Srishti, he is pervaded everywhere and maintains. But also in the bhutas, that is our bhutas, that which has a capacity to elevate itself is called bhuta. That which has bhuti is bhuta. That is all the Jiva Ganas. Jiva Ganas are all bhutas. And what does he do? He sits inside the Jiva Ganas itself and maintains them. That is why he says, Yena esha bhutaihi tishtate. He means stresses. 100% he's sitting there always as what? Antaratma. So this antaryamin, antaratma concept or antaryamin becomes very, very important in the next subsequent verses. Okay? Because the next philosophy is, why on earth does he need to sit inside the jivas? Okay? We understand from what Sureshji has said that he sits in he creates all the Jada Tattvas and he sits inside them. But then there is a philosophical question. Does he not have anywhere to go? Why does he have to sit inside the jivas itself? Why is he sitting there as their antaryami? It cannot just be for their pramiti, pravriti and satta. They must be for something else. So again, Angirasa is giving new ideas in the next verse. And that is the prelude to what is coming next. He even goes on to say, what is the purpose of this jiva, this Paramatma sitting inside the jiva? He gives an extremely new approach to this, he antaratma. Okay? So we will discuss all that next week about the ideas of Antaratma, why he is there in Jivas, and how in Vedic philosophy, the key thing is don't waste your time. I'm sorry to say this, don't waste your time to go to various places of worship. I'm not saying you should not, but don't make that as your sole purpose. Don't search for God outside. Search for God inside is what our rishis have said all the time. Yeah. Search for him inside. Search for him inside. Why? Because he's sitting inside you as your Antaratma. That is the idea there, which we will capture. The whole process of the philosophy of Antaryamin. Okay. Antaryamin means what? That which is inside something. Okay. That itself is an important philosophy. If something is inside something, then that something has to exist. First, the something has to exist. Then only it can go inside and stay inside it. If this itself is imaginary, there is no idea of Antaryamin. Antaryamin is not similar to Adhisthana and Aropa. Adhisthana means something that is there in the background and something that is superimposed. That is not what Antaryamin is. The philosophy of Antaryamin has got nothing to do with Adhisthana and Aropa. The philosophy of Antaryamin is there is a real entity, and inside him is this real Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam as described in Katha Upanishad. So we'll pick up all those ideas, and we will also understand what is Aham, what is Ahaha in Vedic philosophy, yeah, and how that Aham is the Antaryamin. Yeah? And all those ideas we'll discuss next week. So on that note, we will close today's session. And if we have any questions to discuss, let's take it up now. Thank you very much for a very, very interactive session. Excellent.
I like to ask a question, but I don't want this to be recorded. So after stopping the recording, I will ask the question.
No worries, no worries. Yeah, okay, sure. Anybody else? Any other questions? Okay, if there are no further questions, could I request Suresh ji to take us through Omkara Chintana, and then we can close today, please. Thank you very much, everyone. So join us next week for another interesting session. So Shobha ji, we can take your question offline. Please do send me a message if you want to clarify them. Yeah. Take care. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Srinivas.
Hare Krishna. Namaskar.